Hello everybody. There are several similarities between the artist we featured in our last episode and the first artist in today's episode. They were both named Robert Harrison from our last episode and Robert Cole from this episode, although Robert Cole usually went by the name Reuben rather than Robert. They were about the same age, both born in England, and both died in Dunedin just a few years apart. Cole in 1919 and Harrison in 1923. Reuben Cole was born in Norwich in 1850 and by the early 1870s can be found working as a house painter and decorator. He married Mary Ann Chetelborough in 1873. Their first child, Elizabeth Jane, was born in Ipswich in 1875, and their second, Emma Alice, in Slough in 1877. By the early 1880s, the Coles were living on the Isle of Wight, where Reuben was employed on and off as first decorator at Osborne, Queen Victoria's residence at East Cowes. In 1889, while still living on the Isle of Wight, Mary Ann gave birth to their third child, Herbert Robert. Reuben was clearly more than just a decorator at Osborne. He was also called upon for other artistic duties, such as painting copies of pictures and photographs, and regularly creating scenic backdrops for theatrical productions involving the Queen's children. In August 1894, the New Zealand Herald records, "The Queen keeps a scene painter in the person of Mr. Reuben Cole, who has quite a paint room at the Ladywood Pavilion at Osborne, where Princess Henry and the Marchioness of Lorne often go to make sketches for backcloths and chamber sets." But Cole's days at Osborne were at an end. That same month, faced with a lack of decorating work at Osborne, and rather than take a cut in his terms of employment, he handed in his resignation. Thereafter, he appears to have worked at the Olympia Event Centre in London for a time, but in 1905 or 6, Reuben, Mary Ann, their three children, and their son-in-law Charles Basson all moved to New Zealand. They settled in Dunedin, where Reuben, now in his mid-50s, began offering his services as a portrait and animal painter, a picture restorer, and a producer of paintings, miniature to life-size from photo or from sittings. Soon Reuben once again found himself painting sets for stage productions too. The Evening Star, previewing an upcoming production of The Mikado by the Dunedin Operatic Society in October 1908, declared that one of the principal attractions of the production will be the scenery which is from the brush of Mr. Reuben Cole, late scenic artist to the late Queen Victoria at Windsor and the Olympia, London. The painter has in his landscape and interior work succeeded in introducing a warmth of natural colour, typical of the flora and fauna of the land of the rising sun. Also in 1908, we get a glimpse of the crossover between photography and art in this period, when an Evening Star newspaper reporter visited the photographic studio of William Rowe Frost to witness the creation of a portrait of outgoing Mayor of Dunedin, John Loudon. First a photograph was taken of the ex-mayor wearing the mayoral robes, then Reuben Cole proceeded to produce an oil portrait from the photograph. Only one or two sittings were needed to get the colours right, and the end result was a realistic representation that compared well to expensive oil paintings done elsewhere in the world. Sometimes Cole didn't have the luxury of a sitting or two to get the colours right. George Ford had been deceased for at least a decade by the time Cole had arrived in New Zealand and painted his portrait from a photograph. David Forsyth may have still been around to sit for Cole for this portrait, but his wife Mary Ann was long deceased, having died in April 1876, aged 41. The Forsyths had married at Knox Church in 1860. Mary Ann had produced 8 children by the time of her death, but few had outlived her. 2 died at birth. 2 more when they were just a couple of months old, one aged 4 and one aged 9. Mary Ann's death in April 1876 had come hot on the heels of 3-month-old Ernest's death in February and 4-year-old Ralph's in March. Newspaperman George Bell and his wife Abigail likewise were already deceased by the time Reuben Cole painted these portraits. And Cole had only been 10 years old when Captain William Cargill passed away in 1860. Cole appears to have based his painting of Cargill on this image printed from an engraving by Henry Sadd. This couple, James and Betsy Kitto, emigrated from England to Australia in 1854, then joined the gold rush to Gabriel's Gully in 1861 or 62, and later settled into farming in Otago. The Kitto family would hit the headlines in 1882 when James's brother John ran amok with a rifle at Miller's Flat, killing one of his sons-in-law and seriously wounding another. John, who had previously spent time in the Dunedin Asylum, was judged to be insane and spent the rest of his life in psychiatric care. According to an inscription on the back, Cole produced this portrait to celebrate the sitter's 71st birthday on the 18th of January 1908. The sitter's name is also written on the back, but sadly we haven't been able to decipher what it says. Nor have we been able to establish which Mr. and Mrs. Robertson are depicted in these two works. I've left this portrait of James Nisbet until last because this one was donated to the museum by Reuben Cole himself in 1918. It's unknown why Cole had this painting in his possession or why he chose to donate it to the museum at that time. Now you may have noticed in the photograph of Reuben and Mary Ann's son Herbert that we showed you earlier that he's holding a palette and brushes. So you've probably deduced that he followed in his father's footsteps as an artist. Herbert married Beatrice Elizabeth Scoble in Dunedin in 1912. They had 2 daughters, one born in 1914 and the other in 1916. But also in 1916, Herbert Robert Cole, marine artist of Dunedin, was passed fit for war service. He initially joined the motorboat patrol, but soon found himself transferred to the medical corps. Eventually he became staff artist attached to the New Zealand Medical Corps Facial and Jaw Injury Unit, where first director of the Dunedin Dental School, Henry Pickerel, and Dunedin-born Harold Gillies were conducting groundbreaking work in the reconstruction of faces of badly wounded servicemen. Photographs showing patients' injuries taken before and after surgery were turned into portraits by Sergeant Cole. Wax models were likewise painted to record the colour of damaged and healing tissue. Diagrams and sketches were also made as surgical procedures were taking place. After the war, the New Zealand Facial and Jaw Unit was transferred from England to Dunedin. While Herbert Cole returned to his career as an artist in Dunedin, he appears not to have successfully reintegrated into family life. In 1919, his wife Beatrice sought a separation order, which was granted, and Herbert eventually moved away from Dunedin. As an artist, he would return to specialising in marine paintings, and like his father, also gained a reputation for painting murals and stage sets. When the new Dunedin Dental School building opened in 1926, one of its waiting rooms was decorated with a 19.5 metre long mural painted by Cole, commissioned by Pickerel, which depicted the evolution of warships. That's all we have for this episode, so see you next time, and thanks for watching.